I hope that we are all safe and healthy during this COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, we are so privileged enough that we are going to present today our dissertation, which we were able to complete in our alma mater, one of our alma maters actually, in Don Mariano Marcos Memorial State University, an open university in the said school. And because of the support of the university, Benguet State University, my immediate supervisor, Dr. Felipe S. Camila, and other people that really give their support for me to complete this research. I am so thankful to everyone. Okay, the consolidated title of the researches that I've conducted is entitled Electoral Treaties in the Cordillera Administrative Region. The treaties stands for process, problems, and practices. So the study contemplated the different electoral practices in the different provinces in CAR. The study also discussed how they observed the policy process on election as mandated by law and in relation to having a peaceful electoral process. Because of my passion on election, I continued to research why is it that there are some provinces in CAR that are still under the election hotspot. And so I tried to compare their practices. Considering also taking into consideration the factors of my research in peaceful electoral process in Benguet, which I collected, and I used this one to compare it with the other provinces if it could be done in comparing the different provinces. When it comes to our democracy, one of the action in order for us to practice this democracy is election. Unfortunately, the challenge in the exercise of election is election-related violence, or the so-called ARV. It is politically corrected. The political correct word for this one recently is known as politically motivated incidents. We practice election, and yet why is it this PMIs occur during election? The challenges that the Philippines faces now is that there are still election hotspots in the different provinces in the Philippines. In CAR, there are still two notable provinces which is still under the election hotspot during election. And this is Abra and Kalinga. Previously, Apayao is also one of it, but luckily among the 6 provinces, there are only 3 already that were being still under the election hotspot in Cordillera Administrative Region. The irony here is that why is it Benguet enjoys peaceful election while other provinces cannot enjoy this one? This is the reason why I wanted to research on this one. And I was lucky able to float some questionnaire, but there are some risks in this research, actually, especially that is related in election. I have the nerve to conduct the study in Abra. To save, definitely we need to take into consideration our security and safety. In collecting the data, actually, I need to assign someone that is already in the said place in order to float the questionnaires that we made. And we were able to collect them. And in Mountain Province, I personally went to Mountain Province and floated the questionnaires. Also in Kalinga, I went to Kalinga and conducted some interviews and floated the questionnaires also. But in Abra, considering that this is really the province where there's a high risk of this kind of hot tents when it comes to election, for safety and security, we need to resort to that kind of collection of data. In our paradigm of our study, if you're going to look in the paradigm of our study, this is actually the simplified output already on how we conducted our dissertation. We look into the awareness of the factors on peaceful electoral process as per the Omnibus Election Code, observation of these factors, What are these factors? Maybe you're asking now, what are these factors? The factors that we try to introduce to the different provinces, if this could be adapted to them, are the factors that we research from the how the Benguet province was able to maintain its peaceful election. Okay, we tried also to look into the level of performance of our local COMELEC staff, the local election personnel, our electoral candidates, on how they involved in this kind of electoral process, how is their extent in order to maintain peaceful election in their province, and also to look into the perception of the respondents, which is the common voters, on how they perceive also in maintaining peaceful election in their province. We look also into this, we listed some problems based on the data resources that we collected. We listed some electoral problems that we encountered during election, and we try to look into the level of seriousness of this one based on the perception of the respondents. Okay? And based on these problems, we conducted some interviews with the regional CAR director, with the provincial director of different provinces on how they acted upon on these problems. Okay? So in collection of data, you don't go only on the respondents. You need to also conduct interviews to those persons who are knowledgeable on the topic. After the collection of all the data and analyzation of it, and then here comes now already an output as to the status of the electoral practices, problems, and process in CAR. And this were being made into a simplified code, which we submitted already to CAR region, if this could be adopted by CAR in order to promote the said code in giving public information that the possible content of the code is very beneficial in attaining a peaceful election process. But this code is based on the research purely. Now, let's go over on the level of awareness of the respondents. If you go over the table, there are 12 factors that we provided where the respondents are going to rate if which among this one or in their perception, okay, are they aware that these 12 factors could contribute in attaining a peaceful election. Now, I put here a red mark when it comes to educational attainment of the electorate got the highest mean, together with educational attainment of the electoral candidate. Okay? Abhorrence towards warlordism, meaning to say you are not supposed to go with private armies, no private armies, existence of indigenous or tribal settlement of conflict, respecting voters' choice during election. Unfortunately, the respondents perceive this one as they are aware, and yet if we're going to look into their mean, it is somewhat like the lowest, okay, among the factors. Awareness talks on the consciousness of the respondent on how they perceived the factors, which is very different on the observations. Okay? Now, in the given table, if you're going to look at it, I would like to analyze the high, the versus moderate level of awareness. The green one and the one with red lines. Okay? My analysis on this one is that respondents perceive that the real choice of the voters got the moderate level of awareness in connection to being compromised by warlordism sometimes, because this is being compromised on having guns and compliance on the rules and regulations on election. This will be fully understood if we're going to go on the observation. Mind you, this is the level of awareness of the respondents. They are moderately aware that in attaining peaceful election, there should be no private armies. They are moderately aware that one of the factors in attaining peaceful election is the interference of indigenous settlement of conflict. They are moderately aware that respecting voters' choice during election is one of the factors in attaining a peaceful election. And the two factors that get the highest rate of highest rate of factors in maintaining election is the educational attainment of the electorate and the candidate. What does it mean then? The notable analysis of this one is that in some parts of Cordillera, the culture of relying heavily to the advice and decision-making of the elders as well as settlement of any conflict or misunderstanding is slowly being eroded, brought about by technological and educational development. If you notice, this is being affected by the number of respondents. The respondents are more with the age of 26 to 35 years old. Nowadays, in this age, most already of the people were being able to attain to school. As to the level of observation, it is observed by the respondents that people's adherence to peace and order, respect to electoral candidates, and respecting voters' choice during election got the highest rate of result. Okay? Unfortunately also, high respect to the electoral candidates or directives of the elders has the lowest mean. Okay? The result of it is that respect to elders has the lowest level of observation. And yet, most of the informants, when we say informants, the people whom we interviewed, said that elders' rule is so important that their pieces of advice are highly obeyed and followed by the electorates and candidates, which makes election process peaceful in the region. It is then the result of my study indeed that diplomacy between and among people in the community depends on how to attain it. Despite the fact that there were rules and regulations that would have been laid down, it still depends on the people on how to attain them. And this is by the intervention of the elders, which should be maintained. As to the seriousness of the problems, there were some listed seriousness of the problems, problems that were being listed in this research. The highest mean, which the responsive perceived to be moderately serious, is the non-registration of proposed voters on the scheduled registration period by the COMELEC and vote buying. Okay. Vote buying, as they said, cannot be eliminated. Vote buying can be attributed to the vulnerability of the electorates due to their economic condition, fueled by the customary perspective of getting something from the electoral candidates was better than receiving nothing at all when they assume their post after election. Okay. Now, when it comes also to the problems that were being listed, actually were being divided into three. Problems encountered before election, problems encountered during election, and problems encountered after election. When it comes to the during election, harassment to board of canvassers got the highest mean. After election is election protest. Unfortunately, according to the regional director of COMELEC, while there are some electoral protests that are being heard by the lost political candidates and their allies, unfortunately, there are no filed cases on electoral protest. The same thing with vote buying. Admittedly, vote buying is that when you sold your vote, you accept it, and you when you are giving some amount of money, or vote buying is in any means, actually giving 1 kilo of sugar is already vote buying. And the voters was able to accept it, and that is already a vote buying. It doesn't matter that this is in goods or this is in money. And now, vote buying is very difficult to prove if there is no complainant to prove it, or evidence to prove it. Out of the research also, the best practices were being listed. The best practices that were being listed in this research, which was put into a code, simplified code, is that the provinces in CAR, having a high respect on the directive of the elders in the community on the electoral process is a good practice, because this maintains, in some provinces, peaceful electoral process. People's adherence to peace in order by way of signing an agreement known as the Pagtatikapya or Peace Covenant among the electoral candidates. Actually, in series of election already, this kind of Pagtatikapya and Peace Covenants were being signed by the different aspirants in order to keep peace in the different provinces and within their province. And this were being maintained actually. Unfortunately, during the period of electoral process, it is really unavoiding that there would still some political motivated incidents that could occur. Another best practice is that existence of tribal or indigenous way of settlement of conflict. This is to avoid bloodshed between and among the constituents. On the part of the COMELEC also, some of the best practices that were being listed is that they are already having this off-site voters registration, creation of campaign finance unit. This is because there are some electoral candidates who don't file the expenses that they spend during election. And that is in violation actually of the election code. Proper coordination with the PNP and other law enforcement agency by having diplomatic talk with constituents. Automated election, which is being criticized before, is said to be one of the practices of COMELEC. Actually, the parameters also that were being laid down were being validated by the different respondents, including the COMELEC CAR Regional Director, the different provincial director of the provinces of CAR, and the Institute of Public Administration, and one Dean of College of Law. Okay, and we are also happy to say that we were able to publish the results of these researches, including my dissertation, in one book. And this is entitled A Look at the Elections in the Cordilleras of the Philippines. You could avail this one at the Institute of Public Administration. And for any questions and queries, you could reach us on the following contact details that we have provided on the screen. Okay? We would like also to acknowledge all the people who supported this one. Thank you and have a nice day.